It started in the 19th century when the British established a trading port there. And what happened was they invited traders from India, from Malaysia, from all over Southeast Asia, and from Europe as well to come to Singapore. And over time, the cuisines that they brought with them meshed together and created this cuisine that's a mix of Chinese, Indian, Malay, with some British and Dutch influences thrown in. So it really exemplifies sort of the fusion element of Singaporean food is a dish called Roti John. And it's a dish that came about, it's called John because the British soldiers were called Johns at the time. And roti it means bread. And we eat it for breakfast very often. It's basically a baguette that's sliced in half and then dipped in this beaten egg mixture with like minced lamb and and garam masala and all these other Indian spices. And then the bread is dipped and soaked into this egg mixture and then fried, and it's served with chili sauce. So right there you have the Western baguette, you have the Indian spices, and you have that spicy chili. So it's really a fusion food. I have several favorite dishes. One of them is Hainanese chicken rice, which is a very traditional Singapore dish as well. And it's funny because you'll go to Hainan Island in China, and they also have a version of chicken rice, but it's very different from what you'll find in Singapore. In Singapore, the rice and the chicken are flavored with pandan leaves, which are these tropical leaves that taste something like, it's like vanilla, but a little bit more complex. And it's spiced up with chili sauce and garlic and all these other condiments. So it's a little different from the Hainan Island chicken rice, which is a little blander. The dish that really sparked the whole book was my grandmother's pineapple tarts, which are a cookie that's eaten around Chinese New Year because pineapples are golden and so they're lucky, and it's a buttery shortbread cookie topped with dense pineapple jam. And this was something that my late grandmother made, and I always thought that she would teach me how to make them, but then she died when I was 11, and so it was a lot of her recipes that really inspired this yearning in me. So when I went home to learn how to make them, my dad, who's her son, and who remembers his mother's dishes so fondly, was a little skeptical of this whole quest because he was certain that nothing I made would match up, and I was certain nothing I made would match up. So it was terrible. Some of the things I made, the meat was not chopped finely enough. Something was always a little bit off. But toward the end, I think everyone kind of agreed that I did an okay enough job. There's a real production line to making them. Like the pineapple tarts, my family makes 3,000 every Chinese New Year, and so they go. There's a team that goes to the market to buy like 70 pineapples. There was a whole army of us in the kitchen. There were at least 6 of us in the kitchen. So it was great. I got to be part of each step of the process, which was fantastic. This came about because of a longing for home and for family and for the food that I grew up with. I was born in Singapore and I moved to the U.S. for college, and I always thought that I would go home, but then I ended up staying here and working. And after 15 years of being a journalist here, I lived in Washington for 6 years, and then I went to New York, and I worked at the Wall Street Journal covering fashion there and retail. And after about 15 years, I started to think about home a lot and think about family, and I also missed the food that I grew up eating. And when I thought about the dishes that I grew up eating, it made me very sad that I didn't know how to make them. When I was a child, I was so intent on studying and plotting my career that I didn't want to learn how to cook. I had always seen that as something that my grandmother's generation had to do in order to be good wives. So I was more focused on career, and I never learned how to cook. So after 15 years of being here, I decided I would go home to ask my family to teach me how to cook. The best cooks in the world don't cook by recipes or by remembering how to do it. They cook by instinct. And so I would watch my aunts with bewilderment as they would just like slice open giant bags of sugar and hoist them over the wok and just jiggle, and like these landslide amounts would just pour forth. And I'd be like, wait, shouldn't we measure this? And they're like, measure? Like, we don't measure. So after a while, after some persuading, they agreed to meet me halfway and start measuring a little bit so I would have exact recipes that I could still cook from and other people could cook from.